lost Slavic script was a topic that fascinated me since childhood. In one of my Russian lessons I read a note about the origins of the Cyrillic alphabet. It included a quote that went something like this: Cyrillic comes from the Glagolitic, which was modeled on Greek and the lost Slavic script. It haunted me for years, and finally I decided to look into it, and the rabbit hole I've discovered surpassed my wildest expectations. But let's start from the beginning. Glagolitic was created in 863 by Cyril for the purpose of evangelizing the Slavs. It consisted of 38 letters, including some that didn't appear in any other writing system, which leads authors to believe that it was based on an unknown Slavic script. Cyrillic, on the other hand, was created later by one of the Cyr's students. Cyrillic was simplified, based mainly on Greek, pushing the enigmatic, unlike anything else Glagolitic script into oblivion. But the biggest mystery remains: the fact that the Slavs might have used primitive versions of both scripts, even before Cyril. Rus script, I was told by a man whose reliability I trust, that one of the kings of the Caucasus sent him to the king of the Rus. He asserted that they possess a script carved upon wood. He also showed me a piece of white wood upon which there were markings. I don't know whenever they were words or separate letters similar to this. Here we have a sketch, a sample of what the ancient mysterious Slavic script looked like. It is a unique piece of evidence, most likely a bridge bark, which Ibn Nadim held in his hands. Many experts consider it to be a form of a Proto-Cyrillic, pointing out that during repeated copying, some characters might have been replaced with shapes familiar to the copyists, similar to how the Turkish influences are visible in Bosnian Muslim Cyrillic. Interestingly, a recent discovery in Istanbul revealed an older copy of the text, which resembles early Cyrillic even more. This gives the academic community great hope that even older, less distorted versions are hidden in the Turkish archives. But that's not all. Methodius himself, along with Cyril, had dealings with some kind of a Slavic script, and even supposed Slavic books. In the life of Cyril and Methodius, we read, "And there he found a gospel, and a psalter, written in Rus letters, and he met a man speaking that tongue. Having conversated with him, and grasped the sense of his words, he compared them to his own language, distinguishing the vowels from the consonants. After offering a prayer to God, he soon began to read and speak, and many marveled at him, giving praise to God." And here something intriguing appears. Symbols, resembling a less advanced Cyrillic alphabet, have been discovered near Moscow. According to Gavrilov, this system was created based on contact with literate and semi-literate peoples during the migration of peoples. But the thing is, these people did live next to Slavs, but back then Moscow area wasn't Slavic, it was Ukrainic. For now it looks like everyone around but Slavs had some kind of writing system. And that's what researchers have been puzzling over for hundreds of years. More specifically, since the 18th century, when Slavic runes began to be found regularly, as if in response to the racist beliefs of German scholars about the inferiority of the Slavs. The largest collection of all these finds was compiled by Lechejewski in his monumental work on Slavic runes and Slavic and runic monuments. However, even in Lechejewski's times, that was quite a bit ago, he had doubts about many of these discoveries. However, the culmination of the alleged finds was the Book of Veles, supposedly found during the Russian Civil War by one of the generals of the White Army. Although the tablets didn't survive World War II, and only a photograph of one page has survived, in the 60s a complete edition of the Book of Veles, consisting of 168 pages, magically appeared. Needless to say, the scientific community ruthlessly debunked the book that has risen from the ashes, as well as its only real photo, and they were declared forgeries along with many earlier finds. If you want, you can pause it, and in general there is a collection of almost 200 pages of criticism of the Veles book, but I didn't want to bore you with it. But were all those medieval witnesses lying? Why would they? Weren't Slavs in their eyes uncivilized pagans? Why, in between of criticizing them, they would lie about them having a functioning writing system? It doesn't make any sense. Well, perhaps for hundreds of years, without satisfactory answers, various people, including Slavists, created many falsifications, but modern science has some answers to it. And this is where archaeology steps in. The oldest runic inscriptions in Slavic lands dates back to 583-640 in Czechia. According to Lechejewski, runes first came to the Baltic Slavs in Pomerania at the end of 7th and 8th century from the Scandinavians, then to the Greater Poland in 7th century, then to Bohemia and Slovakia from the Polabian and Odra Slavs, and to Ruthenia with Normans in 9th century. The Southern Slavs, on the other hand, adopted runes from the remains of the Germanic peoples who inhabited their lands before their arrival. However, recent findings, such as those bones from the Czech Republic, prove that there were probably more cases of the adoption of runes from the ancient Germanic peoples, and they didn't come exclusively from the Scandinavians. So there we have it. The Slavs use runic writing. We found the answer. Or have we? After all, the entire Slavic world was intensively penetrated by the Scandinavians. How can we be sure that it was the Slavs who actually used this script? Many experts point this out. In response, some defend the thesis of Slavic origins of runes, providing more arguments. Jan Lechejewski, for example, categorically states that the Slavs not only knew the runes, but actively used them, adopting them from the Scandinavians and adjusting them to their own language. To which the second group responds with more arguments, and so on and so forth. Gromov and Bychkov, in their most comprehensive work on this subject, indicates that many symbols considered to be runes are in fact marks, like property marks, or perhaps counting systems, rather than a phonetic script. In all this madness, we forgot one thing: Glagolitic. All archaeological finds, and even the existing forgeries, imply that the Slavic culture was undeniably influenced by the Norse culture. All of these Slavic alphabets, both real and fake, are modeled on, or even directly based on Scandinavian runes. But how does this relate to the Glagolitic? Well, the story of Glagolitic seems to be even more intriguing. How is it possible that Cyril, when creating the script, as the scientific consensus claims, based on Greek and an unknown Slavic script, or perhaps set of symbols, didn't create something that resembles runes, but instead created something that, well, doesn't resemble anything? But is that really the case? I say this because what I have found explains why the Slavic runes and Glagolitic are so different. What I have found indicates that Glagolitic might actually be much closer to the true writing of the Slavs. Long, long ago, on the boundless Eurasian steppe, between today's Orenburg and Kerch, a mysterious script was born, created by the ancient nomads. Scientists have proven that it was a fully-fledged functioning writing system. Then in the 1st century AD, under the influence of the Bosporan kingdom and the dynamic Greek culture, this ancient script began to thrive and evolve. In the 80s of the 1st century AD, the Sarmatian script began its journey westward. In the 2nd and 3rd centuries AD, these characters began to penetrate deep into the Dacian and Germanic communities. But why I'm even talking about all of this? Wasn't this supposed to be a video about Slavs? Well, after a bit of research, I found a recent academic paper that compared the Sarmatian script with Glagolitic, and results are pretty shocking. Well, no, I'm not surprised that the Cyril students simplified Glagolitic into Cyrillic, which was almost like a Greek, because Glagolitic itself is literally a calque of the Sarmatian script. This comparative research paper provides us with the first evidence in literally hundreds of years that points to the potential roots of the Glagolitic, solving this long, unsolvable mystery. Well, this work is very recent. It is a very new perspective in the scientific community, but perhaps it will initiate more research that will shed light on the mysteries of Cyril and Glagolitic script. As you can see, all this time, the answer was being looked for in the wrong place, in the runes, and not the first Slavic script, the Glagolitic. Okay, but where is the connection? where is the connection thread between the ancient Sarmatian script used on the shores of the Black Sea and Slavs? Well, there's a plot twist. In a distant region beyond the Caucasus Mountains, on the Sea of Azov, there lived a Sarmatian clan, whose coat of arms, since time immemorial, was red and white checkerboard. These warrior men called themselves Croatians. In 410, they set off westward, deep into Europe, to the lands inhabited by Slavs. There it is likely that they gradually took power over them. After the fall of the Huns, in 453, the Sarmatian commanders, having no superior authority above them, took power over these territories in their own name, creating an elite ruler class among the Slavs. And in 480 they migrated westward with other Slavs, forming a new state, Robatia. And as the ruling class in the Slavic polity, they quickly became Slavicized. If this reminds you of Polish Sarmatism, well, yeah. When I discovered this, I became fascinated by this analogy myself, and I think I will make another extensive video about it in the future. But coming back to the topic. Do you know where Glagolitic was mainly used? In Moravia and Croatia. Well, and also in the world of The Witcher. And do you know where it survived the longest? In Croatia. And who emerged from the territories of White Croatia to the Balkans, where Cyril operated among the other Slavs? That's right, the Croats. An interesting coincidence, isn't it? Could this be the answer? That it was the Sarmatian rulers of the Slavs who brought their own writing system with them, even before the Vikings appeared on the scene with their runes, and that it was some Slavs still using the Sarmatian script who became an unconscious model for Cyril? Well, I would like to be able to answer affirmative to this question, but unfortunately the Sarmatian script is extremely old. And chroniclers all agree that the Slavs most often wrote on the wood. Wood, as we know, decomposes within 50 to 200 years. Whatever was written in the script in Slavic lands has most likely not survived. For now, the only evidence is this very logical hypothesis and the sequence of events I have just taken you through. But the presence of pre-Cyrillic Glagolitic script has still not been proven archaeologically. Maybe it will be in the future. Who knows? Currently, skeptics might say that Cyril, in some absolutely unlikely coincidence, came across collection of Sarmatian Tamgas and for some reason consider them to be a Slavic writing. It sounds very abstract, even crazy, but as long as there is no hard archaeological evidence, they have the same right to proclaim their thesis. And the archaeological evidence will be difficult to find, as the German clergy burned Slavic manuscripts en masse. And in general, during the brutal Christianization, everything related to the previous era was ruthlessly destroyed. Methodus students were brutally tortured, and 200 clerics were sold into slavery in Venice. In the eyes of Germans at the time, the pagans were to be annihilated and their lands Germanized. There was no room for conversion. The current scientific consensus is that for the moment only the Russians had some sort of alphabet. Proto-Cyrillic, developed in the form of pictographic chart and res between 2nd and 4th centuries in the Chervens culture. The emergence of the first Slavic states created a need for more precise writing system. This led to the creation of Proto-Cyrillic based on Greek, dating back to the 7th or 8th century. In the mid-9th century, Proto-Cyrillic reached a level that allowed complex text to be written down. This situation was later utilized by the evangelist Cyril and his followers. It seems that the answer to the question in the title of this video is not so simple after all. If we accept my hypothesis, then 2 or even 3 systems of writing clashed in pagan Slavic lands. Did they compete with each other? We don't know, and might never know.